Hello, my name is Mindaje Bastida from the Otomi Toltec peoples from central Mexico. It's a great honor to be with J.J. Hortag and Desiree Hortag this morning, this afternoon, and this night. I have been honored to call to other people to write about their experiences about ancestors. And this is the book that we have come together, Ancestors in the Sentence Common, and JJ and Desiree have been key in this book because they have also been in so many sacred sites around the world. As you know, we have been working with two teams, especially with the Eagle and the Condor Council members, and also with the team of Rico Paganini and Cortado Ongara and Pubin Mudley, among others. And JJ and Desiree have been also in the places that we have visited, especially in Egypt, in other places like in Azores, and recently we were also in Mount Shasta and in Kauai and many other places. So what we have put together is the divine remembrance of lineage, relations, and sacred sites. So this book really is the ancestral wisdom that we are putting together, because ancestors is not just the blood lineage, but it's also the entities, the deities that dwells in the sacred sites, but also the sacred landscape. And beyond that, ancestors are from the stars. You know, remember that our creation stories tells us that we came from the stars, from the Pleiades, and then the leading star, that's what we call now Venus, is always present in our lives. It's the most important star in our lives as a peoples. Then we came to Lemuria, that others call the Mu continent, as we call the Mu continent. And then we know that we have still until today, we have two very important manifestations or celebrations among the Otomi Toltec. And then we are very related to the ancestors through the celebration of the day or the days of the dead around November, beginning of November, ending of October. So today we have the beautiful time to be here with JJ and Desiree. And it's so amazing because they have witnessed directly how ancestors manifest. They manifest in sacred sites and elsewhere, because the connection is so important, and the intention that we put when we travel and we carry out presence and ceremony, and we put the offerings and the payments, the intention, then other possibilities open. So welcome, brothers, sisters, JJ and Desiree. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you, Mendahi. We are honored to be with you. We have, as you know, worked extensively around the world. We are honorary members and chiefs of the Xavante Nation in Brazil. I'm showing one picture of our work. In eras of Western civilization have overlooked the importance of the indigenous sacred areas. And many years ago, when I was doing my work in Mexico at Tulum and using sacred language, I'm speaking now of the historic language of the Hebrew, Aramaic, and the Egyptian, as well as the indigenous languages. A light event took place, as you can see here briefly, in the sacred area of Tulum, Mexico, which is noted for its ancient pyramids. While I was chanting and singing, a light force suddenly came down, and I felt a connection with the ancestral powers of Tulum. This is something that was amazing. A man taking a picture of his wife, I'm pointing to with my finger at the lower part of the picture, was able to capture in a few seconds this energy field that came around my body and actually knocked the translator off his position on the platform where we were doing the celebration. So we know there are energy fields that are connected with the sacred areas that now must be respected and re-energized if we're going to see our way through this planetary change with minimal difficulty.
Right. And Mandani, I know some of your work, a lot of people looking at the book Ancestors think, especially when the Native Americans talk about it, my grandmother, my grandfather, but you've taken it a higher step, which I think that's valid. The grandfather and grandmother, they're always influencing us, and that's important as well. But in the sacred areas, it's also the planetary grandmothers and grandfathers, those that have been with us for, we'll say 6,000, we'll even say 12,000, 36,000 years watching this planet. And so that's really, really important to realize that this planet has been watched and cared for many, many generations. And that's one of the reasons that in 2012, while we did the day after 2012, we were down at the Cancun Convention Center with 1,500 people, because we knew there was too many ancestors really watching this planet to have it here today, gone tomorrow. And we needed a lot more. But we're in a time of change right now, and that's why this information is so important to come out. And we've worked together with you in many places like Sedona, Arizona.
As well as South Africa, where we work with Credo Mutwa and produced a film back in the 80s called Voice of Africa, the unseen aspect of spiritual music and spiritual teaching that brings people together. And also with you in Egypt. I may show this picture to our audience. It's a little bit difficult to see with the right perspective, however. You see the golden light inside the ascending chamber, or the Grand Gallery as it's also called. In Giza, Egypt, the Great Pyramid was built with a certain musical acoustical property. And when we sing and use sacred language, suddenly the sacred area begins to change its vibration, light up momentarily, as we see here. The word pyramid means fire in the middle. So here we see a standing column or way of light energy that was momentarily produced while we were singing together in celebration of the ancient unity with our ancestors from various parts of the Near East. And so your work and our work connect with all of the tribal traditions that wish a peaceful transition with the cosmic cultures.
And I just want to add that the temples that we talk about, and they can be from Egypt to the Mayan culture or wherever around the world, they were there for the ancestors and for those who live in the higher realms to come and connect with us. And we believe when you go there, you do sacred ceremony and you do your prayers and meditations, especially in the indigenous language that's there, these beings literally start to materialize.
So we honor your work with the Toltecs. We honor your leadership. We honor very much the work that we're doing in all of the sacred areas around the world, including the Azores in the north, because these areas are part of what we believe to be an ancient grid or a sacred geometry of brotherhood and sisterhood that is now being energized.
Yes, so amazing what you are sharing with us. Those are, sometimes people, yes, they just hear, but these pictures show exactly how energy works. So what would you suggest for, let's say, common people, ordinary people, to get connected to the ancestors and to the higher ancestors?
I will begin by saying people need to visualize their spiritual family as something that is present in a higher vibration, like a musical keyboard. As we go higher and higher into the musical notes, our ears, our eyes, our heart begins to open with a higher sense of vibratory attunement. And I feel that music and sacred language work together to open our body as a musical instrument in harmony to be with our spiritual family, regardless if we think it's in the Pleiades, in Orion. These are areas that we have had contact with, like you, whether someplace else. The point is that we are a family of music and devotion, and we must fuel this by being more positive with the vibrations, with scientists call acoustical physics of consciousness. We must raise our consciousness in daily celebration.
Right. And so just know that we're not alone. No one is alone, actually, even if you live by yourself. That's what I was saying, even during the COVID times, basically there's so much, people say, well, that was, I felt my mother telling me something, and that can be your ancestor, but you can also go a little higher than that and say, well, I felt, the presence of the divine instructing me or helping me along the way or guiding me. And that's what's so important. And even also maybe those who had been part of your spiritual tradition, if you're Catholic, for example, you feel the presence of the angels who are watching over you.
Or if you're Mescalero Apache, you feel the vibrations.
These are all valid. And, we cut ourselves off to say, oh, those things don't exist. They don't happen. That's just, old mythology. But it's not. And I think more and more the curtain between our reality and the next realms are starting to get thinner and thinner. I think people are starting to tune in to understanding and to feeling. And Dr. Jack also mentioned, the sacred areas, because that's part of our function here tonight, to talk about these sacred areas that we wrote about in a small section of your book there. But, there is this grid structure around the planet. We believe the Great Pyramid is part of that, but we also believe many of the pyramids in Mexico are part of that, but also in Hawaii. There's also the heiaus, that's part of that, and all the way into the Far East, and India, the stupas. So this is all part of a larger network, and those networks literally align us to the stars. And that was part of the purpose of any of the temples, was to connect us back to the higher regions of that we forgot that existed, and we can invite them now into our lives and listen to them, because I believe that's the way of the future. We have to know and have to listen.
I'm showing a picture of the cosmograms or cosmic pictures we teach with all people that elevates the mind to see the coming of the La Paloma, the dove, the symbol of peace throughout the world cultures. And we are at a time we recognize as the gathering of the tribes, where people can come together if they take the higher path of compassion and unconditional love. And so that's part two. Besides the vibration, there must be a living and a loving connection that overcomes the negative separations that unfortunately the media likes to play upon. And we have to be wise students in recognizing we are part of a much greater family, a greater civilization of the cosmic cultures, or what your traditions and the indigenous of North and South America called the Star Nations. The Star Nations are coming back, and this is why we're having these amazing signs. Again, another picture of a dove that manifested over one of the pyramids in Mexico while we were praying. So we have authentic scientific documentation, musical documentation, photographic documentation that a big change is coming that we must not prepare for, not in fear, but in celebration.
And we went into the pyramids. We did actually research that's been published. We went into the pyramids of Palenque underneath the ground. We went into the pyramids of Chichen Itza, the main one, and underneath the ground. And we did sound testing to get the resonant frequencies. And we believe some of those frequencies help us. So sound, chanting, and even, just praying verbally and connecting yourself. Intention, many people are talking about now, that intention really transforms the ability to reach out. You have to say you want to help humanity. You also have, and with your heart, don't just say it logically. And then you also have to realize that you can be a higher divine vessel for helping humanity. And that's what the ancestors, whether you look at your own in-laws, so to speak, on the other side, or the divine guidance that this planet's always had. That is what they want us to do. They want us to help humanity.
And Mandahi, you speak of the 13 areas. This is so important.
And help the animals and the plants. I want to say that too. We were given even in the Bible, given the right to name the given the right to name the animals. And that's because that is part of our work, to help animals, to help plants, to help all of this. And, we've neglected it, as you well know.
Yes, I want to ask you about some guidance for us and for people in general, for the world. How can we honor ancestors? How can we really direct that intention, that love that we have for life and for transcendence?
Well, first of all, we must show the big picture that there are these sacred areas that must be connected together. These are the 13 areas I just talked about.
And that you've traveled around the last few years.
That we're not visiting and activating. Yes. Secondly, we must show devotion and possibly get local authorities to set these areas aside for continuous use in the celebration of respect for the past, but also preparation for the future. In this way, we become the temple of understanding. We bring all temples together because we are the capstone. We are the missing part of the greater temple that unites all of these others. The 13 areas you speak of is also part of the Coptic teaching of mystical Christianity in Egypt, that there are 13 levels of the heavens, and the 13th requires the synthesis of all of them together. So it's teaching universality, it's teaching pluralism, it's teaching sacred respect for everyone who takes the higher path and avoids violence and separation.
I'll leave it at that, but also just they want us to make this a better world, give us a space for soul advancement. I believe that's part of why we're here. So sometimes challenges come to people, and we really need to recognize that as a challenge and to make the decision to go with helping humanity and not helping ourselves. So going into these temples, these sacred areas, really helps to align us. And I have to say, for some people who maybe can't travel anymore or don't feel like traveling, we can still do that through the power of the mind. It's always better to be there, to feel that energy, but put yourself there, see yourself sitting within the pyramid, the Great Pyramid of Egypt, or sitting within a temple somewhere in the world that you admire. And you can be there, you can receive some of that energy.
Excellent. So anything else you want to add?
Well, I'd like to say, in addition, our book called Mind Dynamics in Space and Time with Elizabeth Rauscher from Stanford Research Institute a few years ago shows the power of the mind to look in any direction and to look beyond limitation for distant communication, distant healing, remote vision. All of these higher powers of consciousness, we will call super consciousness, are now being scientifically validated by our friends at the University of California and also Stanford University. And we feel honored to work with you and to work with so many groups throughout the world who know that the new science of consciousness is on our side. The new vibrations of spirituality is uniting the hearts of people throughout the world. And we must be very positive and not give in to negativity, or should we say, the separation of East, West, North, and South. This is so important, as you well know, from your traditions. The Toltec play a very amazing role in bringing together the appreciation of the ancestral spirit in a very important way. And so we will work with you side by side in any circumstance.
And I just want to say, we talk about the sacred areas in our chapter as well as tonight, but it's important to realize as well that it's not just the physical temple itself. They're in energy parts or grid points of the planet. And that creates a type of vortex energy that's not just on the planet. And people, I know I grew up near the Bermuda Triangle, and there's many places like that are these energy points. But Dr. Hurtak, in his original book, The Keys of Enoch, talks about how they're aligned. And Orion, the Pleiades, and you were mentioning earlier, even Venus, a place of love and energy, positive energy. These are all part of the alignments that these temples are positioned. They're not random positions. In fact, just to say one thing, there was a young Canadian boy about 15 years old. He copied very similar to something that Dr. Jack published in '73, that there's a grid point in the Yucatan of all the pyramids. And there's a lot of pyramids in the Yucatan. Wow. There's actually 100 pyramids or so, even in Egypt, people don't realize. And he aligned them, the pyramids in the Yucatan, to the pyramids, or to the positions of the star points in the heavens.
That's
and he
right.
did this with, are you familiar with this?
Yes, I'm familiar with that. Yes.
And he even found one place that was missing. And when they looked at it through their, we'll say Earth observation satellites, they found that it was a type of ruin. So yeah, this is our thing. He changed it a little bit. We put Chichen Itza, he put Koba, but he was 15 years old and proved this right, that these pyramids of the Yucatan are all aligned to the stars. That's why they were there.
And that's why we've had these experiences.
Wow.
The La Paloma, because we've been praying for unity. We've been praying that the people of Mother Earth become more futuristic and understand we're all connected with our brothers and sisters, our ancestors in the higher worlds. And the illusion of death and separation, of course, is part of the misuse of scientific measurement. Consciousness goes on. The vibrations of the great masters go on. We feel it in the pyramids when they're energized in the ancient temples of Yucatan and Egypt and Africa. We are so fortunate to work together at this time as the avant-garde for a whole new anthropology, a whole new book of evolutionary perspectives. And your book on the ancestors is so important. It is the lifeblood of who we are, who we have come from, and who we will mature to be if we take the path of divine love and service for all humanity.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. We are becoming ancestors, and we will be ancestors in the future. So thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity to talk and share and interchange these beautiful moments. And please,
yes, we will announce this wonderful book wherever we go.
Thank you so much.
We thank Ariel. We thank all of those who have brought us together for this amazing conversation.
Thank you, and be blessed.